Good evening, one and all. So, I'm very delighted to be here to share my experiences in wildlife photography. So, there has been an enough introduction about me, so let me not talk about myself. Rather, taking time on that, we'll directly go to the presentation. What I'm going to do is basically display the pictures that have been taking all these years and discuss with you how those moments happened, how I photographed, and some technical details of wildlife photography too. So this is a picture I shot in 2017. This I shot in Yala National Park, Sri Lanka. So the moment I entered the national park, it was early hours in the morning, and I see that peacock sitting on the top of this dead tree, and the sun has just risen that time. So I was sure I could make a silhouette shot like this, and this is not a usual wildlife shot anybody expects. But you should also know this is also a wildlife shot. Wildlife shot is not only taking pictures of tigers or lions or any other dangerous animals. This kind of picture is also a wildlife picture. So we'll start off with questions. For every slide, I'm going to ask some questions which I have encountered many times from people who talk to me about wildlife. So, what is photography? You're all Viscom students. Most of you are Viscom students. You have a good foundation and introduction about photography and camera, how it works, the mechanism and all. But still, this question is a very general question. To everybody, to every other photographer, why photography means different things. But non-technically, to me, photography is the most effective way to freeze and express emotions. Technically, what is photography? You know, photo means light and graphy means writing or drawing with it. So, photography is basically drawing with light. So, we'll go on to the genres of photography. So, there are various genres of photography. You might have known all the genres of photography, but a very few common photography that we know is food, fashion, journalism, sports, tourism, landscape, portrait, wedding or event photography, and of course wildlife photography. So this is a picture of a lion which I shot way back in 2015 when I had been to Kenya. This lion was actually sitting in a very open place. It was very lousy. So I knew that it would yawn any time. So anticipation, understanding your subject is very important in wildlife photography. So I waited like almost 45 minutes for it to yawn in front of it. And then one yawn, this kind of a picture. This is the picture of the tiger which I took in Bandhavgarh in 2013. So this guy was hiding inside the bushes. One of the tourist guides actually spotted him. He was like very far from us, almost little less than half a kilometer from us. Of course, I used a telephoto lens to shoot him. So the next common question is what camera gear to use for wildlife photography. So most people think that there is a very defined camera to employ with in wildlife photography, which is not true. So what kind of gear is required? So a decent telephoto lens and an appropriate body. So you all being Viscom students will know what is a telephoto lens. Any lens that is having a focal length more than 70 mm is a telephoto lens, right? And what is the appropriate body I mentioned is like your body should have a good FPS. So you know what is FPS, right? What is FPS? There you go, excellent. So you should have a good frames per second because it's mostly going to be action. Very, very instantaneous. So it is good you have a body that has got good FPS. This is another question. Do I need an expensive, advanced or a trending camera to indulge in wildlife photography? So for that I have to show you a picture. This one. This one I shot in Kabini, Karnataka, in my early ages of photography. Should be 2012 or sometime little before that. Another picture of the same tiger I'm showing you, little zoomed in. The same tiger, first shot is like this, the second shot is like that. So you see the animal is sharp. The image of the animal is very sharp, very clear, whiskers are clear, the nose, the eyes, the texture, the colors, everything is very clear. The same there, little zoomed in. Of course, I also moved forward, not just zooming in. So the same kind of output. Look at the body, little blurred. Yeah, so that is because of the depth of field. You all know what is depth of field, Viscom students, yes? Yes. So what camera did I use to shoot this? I used a Nikon 5200 and a Sigma 150-600. You know, Nikon 5200 is not really a great camera. It's an entry-level crop sensor camera. And the Sigma 150-600, 5.6, 6.3, you understand the range of 5.6, 6.3. So with that kind of a gear, I was able to make this picture. Good, will you appreciate this picture? Yes, thank you. So what I conclude to say about this question is no. The best one is you have already mastered. Whatever camera you have to master the camera to use it. So it's like this. An excellent driver driving a Maruti 800 or an elbowed being given a Ferrari. What is the use? Right? So whatever camera gear you have, try to master your techniques with that camera. And there's also another English proverb, don't go to the war without a proven weapon. Familiar proverb? Yeah. So what does that mean? If you don't know how to use your camera, don't go to shoot with it. You will be wasting the opportunity. So know your gear. So what significantly one should know about his camera? Fundamentally, there are three things. What are they? Then what are the next two? Yes, then? Excellent. So you know what is aperture and shutter speed, right? Of course, ISO also. Yeah, these are the three things you have to clearly know about that particular camera you are using. So these are the three important features of your of your camera, which has to work in a concert to produce a beautiful image. So this is what you have to know about your camera. So this is another question. Where and how to begin wildlife photography? So I would say begin at your backyard. How many of you are really conscious of your backyard? That means you know what kind of birds are there in your backyard and what kind of insects or what kind of other beings like squirrel or rat or whatever it is. How many of you are really conscious? To be frank, until I started my photography, I wasn't conscious of my own backyard. But then I started my photography. When I started my photography, the first place I went, like how most of you go, is to the ECR, Muttukadu place, where you see a lot of birds like pelicans, cormorants, egrets, herons. No, that's where even storks. That's where even I had been to. But then after doing one or two trips there, I started discovering some beautiful species around my backyard, like rufous tree pie, woodpeckers, parakeets. And I was really fascinated that if I was living with it all these days, I have not really noticed their existence around me. So then I found the importance of backyard. So generally people think if you have to take good photos in wildlife, you may have to travel, you may have to go to jungles and forest. But before you go there, this is the place where you have to first discover the photographer in yourself. So after this, you may have pets at home. Most of you have dogs, cats, squirrels, all those as pets at home. So they are the best subjects for you because they don't cooperate with you. They're very quick. They don't pose for you. They don't know what you are doing and what kind of an output you are expecting from them. So that's the advantage of having a pet at home if you want to get into wildlife photography. And next, parks. If you have parks near your home, if you don't have backyard, park is the next alternate. And the last place is beaches and riversides. Most of you would have clinged on to your camera going to Marina Beach, seen huge flocks of pigeons, no? And you would have tried to take pictures when they try to lift off and do some innovative, creative shots. So that's another place where you can start your wildlife photography. Okay, so this is the picture of a pair of pelicans which I shot in Ranganathitu, Karnataka, Ranganathitu Birds Sanctuary. This happened like 5 years before. Can you see the beautiful light, the morning light? The picture is sharp. But I have to tell you, I shot this being seated in a boat. I was on a river safari and was able to make this picture. We'll talk about the challenges and other difficulties of clicking such pictures. But first, we'll start off with this question. How do I take good pictures? So to take good pictures, first you take pictures. Keep taking pictures. Even if it doesn't look appealing, even if it is really not appreciated by others, don't stop, don't get dejected. Don't think that is all you can do with your camera, or don't try to put the blame on your camera saying, no, with this kind of a basic camera, this is all I can do. But your basic camera can also do magic if you master it. So keep taking pictures and view many pictures of professional photographers. Instagram, Facebook, follow professional photographers, go browse in the Google, keep having a track of competitions that are held across globe, see the winners' pictures, see what the jury is commenting. So this kind of observation will help you build yourself as a good photographer. And understand the nature and the habitat behavior of your subject. Now, as far as wildlife photography is concerned, understanding your subject is a never-ending challenge. It will be one tiger that you saw, which did some kind of a gesture, but another tiger will not do it. So you shot a great picture of a tiger. Don't think that every tiger that comes to your sight, you can do great pictures. So it is very, very uncertain. So you have to understand the nature and habitat of your subject. Analyze your work. So when you keep taking pictures, keep analyzing where you went wrong, where you have to correct yourself, and what could have made that picture a better one. And keep experimenting with your camera. So you know, even your phone camera these days have so many settings, like a DSLR. It has so many settings, but you don't get to meddle with the options in your phone because we are very busy using it for WhatsApping, Facebooking, Insta. Camera is only when selfie or with friends or when we go out. But even then, try to adjust the exposure, try to adjust the gradation of colors and see what kind of output you get. However, the first 1,000 pictures you take are probably only for trash. So first set in your mind that the first picture or the 50th picture or the 100th picture is not your skill to produce excellent pictures. Keep a set number like 1,000. In these 1,000 pictures, I'm going to trash it, not going to really showcase it. It is not for exhibiting, it is for me to learn. So that's the kind of input that you have to give. Okay, this is the picture of a lion cub which I shot in Africa, 2019 November. So how this happened? The moment we entered the park, 15 minutes from then, I saw a lioness with a few cubs. You know these cubs, if you have had good time with pets at home, no, they don't really see what is around, they don't guard. I'm saying dogs. First, initially when they are pups, they don't guard. They bark when they are hungry, they bark when they are bored, they bark, we don't know why. Yes, so like that, these cubs also, they were playing for a long time. But I had a strong feeling that one of these cubs, they were like 4 to 5 cubs, one of these cubs will definitely be curious of our presence near them. And they are small creatures, they can't observe what we are up to because we are inside a jeep. So they have to come up this small rock, come up to our level and see what we are up to. So that happened almost like after 20-25 minutes. So I told you, understand the nature and behavior of your subject. So that is my understanding of the cub. I knew that it is going to come up sometime. After finishing the playing, after taking permission from mama, it's going to come up. So it came up. And then, look at the background. A very neat background. Nice bouquet. And look at the cub, looking straight at me. I could have taken this picture when it was looking somewhere else, which also I did. But this is the picture I would love to display. Right? So this fraction of second. So can you all tell me for how many minutes this cub would have been standing like this and looking at me?
10 seconds.
Less than that.
2 seconds.
Yes. 1, 2, finish. So that's how quick I have to be to take this picture. So I have to master my camera. I need to know what kind of settings of my aperture, shutter speed and ISO will give a picture like this. Right? So the question with this slide is, what are the challenges in wildlife photography? A very important question which will distinguish wildlife photography from all other genres of photography. So the challenges, the subject is not in your control. That's what I've been telling all this while. The light is also not in your control. This is not like food photography or fashion photography where no, you align the lights and light the subject, keep the shades, meter it, put a flash. No, no way. It's only the sunlight, the daylight which is going to help you. Suppose even if I had a subject which is not, I can't say it cooperative, but a very dead subject, which means like it's there, it will be there for some time. Even that subject, light will not cooperate. The sun keeps moving, the clouds keep moving. I would have put a setting, suddenly there will be a cloud passing. So you also have to consider the light. So next is timing your shot. That also I told you now, right? And then compiling your settings to momentary needs to take a less shaky or precisely a sharp picture while handheld. Now this handheld is something that I have to tell you. This wildlife photography gears, I got my gear today, I'll show you in some time. So it's a very heavy gear. The lens itself will be like more than 1.5 kg, a little less than 3 kg of that range. The body is also a little heavy because it is a bigger body. I'm saying about what I'm having, but I also told you that you need not have exactly gears like this. You can also take pictures with an entry level camera, but only the zoom you may not get. The fastness of the camera will not support sometimes. So what for wildlife photographers like me use is very heavy. So we can't keep holding it for a long time like this. It's going to hurt our muscles, we'll get shoulder pain, all that. And keeping the camera like this, click, put it down, no shake. Hold it like this, see only through the viewfinder, see the subject and all the activities of the subject only through the viewfinder. Can't see like this and then take. The moment I see here and then I see here, this will be different from this. Right? So we'll have to keep seeing only through the viewfinder. So it's going to be very heavy and we can't hold it for long. So that's why I mentioned handheld. So what happens? Ultimately, hand starts shivering, picture becomes shaky, all that happens. So generally what we use if we are on the jeep is a bean bag. You know what is a bean bag. So we try to rest it on the bean bag and take pictures. But one disadvantage of using the bean bag is, suppose if the subject is moving, you can't pan because the camera is rested. So the moment you lift it, you don't get immediate control of the camera, right? And you also have to reposition yourself, come up with the camera and hold it like this. If I had kept it on the bean bag, I would have sat down and I would have been seeing through the viewfinder when it is supported on something. So that is one biggest challenge. And in wildlife photography, we generally don't use tripods or monopods, just for the reason that we'll have to pan. Another picture of a tiger. She's called Noor. So in the wildlife, every tiger, every animal has its name. The forest names it like T60 or T. So in Ranthambore there is a tiger called T60. So we know this is cub of which mother, because we often visit the forest. So we keep hearing news from people who travel, from the guides, from the forest rangers about littering and what is happening in the forest, and slowly we develop a flair for being in the forest. So this is a picture I shot morning 7:30. So again, look at the sharpness of the eye, sharpness of the whiskers. See, I'm telling you this again and again because I've got something to tell about this related to this later. Composing a frame. How do you compose a frame? So now this is a nice, neat frame. Try to make an eye level shot. So this is an eye level shot. So what is an eye level shot? I'm here. The tiger should be, any animal should be at this range. An eye level shot. Okay? If possible, make an eye contact shot. Is an eye contact shot. When I'm looking at the tiger through my lens, the tiger is in turn looking at me through my lens. Straight into the lens. Frame the subject in a good background. Of course, this is not a good background. But in the forest, you can't choose your background, right? Neither can you try to put a background there. So, when I say try to frame the subject in a good background, I'll explain you about this in later slides. Rule of thirds. You all know what is rule of thirds, right? So, that also we'll see later. Consider the lighting. Lighting is the key to photography. Time your shot. Keep the focus on the eye, nowhere else. So these are the things we are going to discuss from now on. Picture of a elephant. Okay, why I'm showing you this picture? Eye level shot. Okay, an elephant is a gigantic big animal. The eye is somewhere on the top. Even if I raise my eye, my hand, the eyes will be above my hand. So if I have to take an eye level shot of an elephant, when I'm on the jeep, I'll have to stand up. So I'll get the range. So if this is the eye, I'll get from the forehead to the beginning of the trunk, right? So this, do you get connected to this picture? It's because it's an eye level shot. I don't mean to say that you should shoot an elephant only like this, but this is an example of an eye level shot. Why should you make an eye level shot? It's very natural to view a person or anything at your eye level, isn't it? Suppose we are talking to a kid. The kid is here. How long will you keep talking to the kid like this? Right? Suppose you are giving some instructions and the kid is sighing. You don't know. You don't know how much of your instruction was received and perceived. Right? So what do? What do I do? I'll get down to the level of the child, look at the eyes of the child and talk. So I know what the child is thinking of whatever I'm saying. I know how much is going in the air, how much is going in the ears. Right? So that's the importance of eye level shot. The other reason, an angled shot may not convey much details. Right? Yes, you might have seen many pictures of huge animals like this. From the bottom a frame is like this and the trunk will be so prominent and beautiful. Not discouraging or discriminating such pictures, but pertaining to eye level shot, it will convey a lot. right? And it will create a good connect with the picture. So that's why I asked you, are you connected to this picture? Is the picture telling you something? Yes. So finally, the picture may not be professional. Leave professional. Professional means making a benchmark, but it may not be appealing to, right? So the elephant is a huge animal. You can't at first spot its eye, not through the camera. Even when you look with your naked eye, you cannot just straight look into the eye of the elephant, right? So if it is an elephant, if you want to say something, you have to get to the eye level. If it is not getting to the eye level, yes, you can capture an elephant as 3/4 of the frame, but still the background, the ambience, the color, the way it walks is still going to say a story, right? So this is the advantage of eye level shot. Eye level pictures. I'm going to show you some eye level pictures. Let me see how far you get connected to it. All of these are my pictures. Right? As I told you, imagine an elephant also like this. Not bang head on the center. You can have an elephant having such a background. This I shot in Africa. Got to the eye level. So the eye level of an elephant is here. Eye level of a leopard is here. Still you can get to the eye level. And if in that picture you have to notice it was the eye level, but I didn't have the eye contact with the animal. It was looking elsewhere. This is a very rare opportunity. Getting to the eye level of a bird. Generally birds don't perch at a low level. They're always on top of the tree, at least above your head. Even crow, it will be above your head. This is the picture of a changeable hawk eagle I shot in Kabini last year, November 2020. It's a very, very rare opportunity to get a bird at this level. Now you see eye level, eye contact. Yes. Another leopard. This is a leopard cub I shot in Africa. Eye level. Yes. But it is sitting down. A leopard's eye level will be of this height. 2.5, less than 3, something like that. But when it is resting on the ground, it's going to be somewhere here. So what should I do? Open the door of the Jeep, lie down on the Jeep, keep the camera on the chassis level of the Jeep, take the picture. Because anywhere you are not allowed to step out of the Jeep. In any wildlife park, be it India or anywhere across the globe, for your safety and to preserve their privacy of their place, we are not let to step down. This again I shot from the boat. River Safari, Ranganathitu, couple of years before. When I was in the boat, this guy came down to pick the twigs from the river to go and build its nest somewhere else. So I was just waiting for this guy to come down to my eye level. Why would he come down to my eye level? He is coming down for the twig. He came down for the twig, and then when he was trying to go up with the twig, I shot this, one edge of the wing alone touching the water, showing the action, creativity. Now this will say a lot of story, right? Another example, a horse size. The eye level will be somewhere here, between the leopard and the elephant. So I mean to say, why I am showing you these pictures, especially because I am trying to tell you, the eye level of every animal varies according to the height. So the eye level is not your eye level, it is the eye level of the animal. Okay, so that is the point. Now this is a very, very different picture in terms of territory. Generally this is found on the ground. The tiger is always on the ground. Tigers are not like leopards to climb trees. So they are always on the ground, and this guy was like on top of a 20 feet tall building. I'll tell you the story of this later, but let's move on to discuss about eye contact shot. So long we were talking about eye level shot, now we're talking about eye contact shot. So are you getting the eye contact of this animal? Yep. So the animal is on the top. From there it is looking down straight into my lens. For how many seconds? Some microseconds, we don't know. So I was constantly looking through the viewfinder, waiting for it to, in a flash, look at me and this shot. Okay? So why this kind of a shot? It conveys a lot. It can tell you what is the mood of the animal. Right? You look at a tiger from behind. So beautiful. Golden body, black stripes, lovely. But when you look at its face, it's terror. But when you look at its eyes, it's even more terrifying. So that's what an eye contact shot can do to you. And on this, we'll discuss about this. Eye is the most lively part of the animal. Eye conveys the mood of the picture. Eye tells you the untold story of the subject. And the eye connects the viewer to the picture. Am I right in always? Yeah, so that's the importance of an eye contact shot. Another eye contact shot. So I'm going to show you pictures with eye contact. This one I shot in Rajasthan in a village called Bera. You should go browse about that village and understand the ecology of that place. This is Pali district. The name is Bera. Name of the village is Bera, B-E-R-A. How many of you know this place? Okay, so I'll tell you. This is a place where humans and leopards coexist. This is not a reserve forest. This is a place where every day the leopards come, take the livestock of villagers. They would have kept some chicken outside. Gone. Dog is tied outside for guarding. Gone. Villagers are not bothered. They want to have a very balanced ecosystem, and this has been happening for so many years there. And I had been there 2020 January, a very cold place in the month of January. That's a different experience also. And this guy was, it's a very rocky area, a lot of small hills, and the jeep goes up the hill like how you see in the old Rajini movies and all. No, the jeep goes on the hill, which we wouldn't imagine. It just goes up like that. I do have a video. I'll sometime try to put it on my Facebook. If you follow me, you can see that also. This guy was hiding for a long time. Very, very elusive guy. He's a cub and he refused to come out. Trust me, for 1 hour 55 minutes I was there in front of the rock, just knowing this guy is there. But he could have just ran away from behind also. But just the belief. And that I want this shot. We waited there for such a long time. He also lost his patience. He came out. I got the shot. So I won. Right? So, another eye contact shot of a leopard in Kabini. This picture is one of my very early days of photography. In fact, this is my second sighting of a leopard. The eye contact shot. A very recent picture of a tiger. 2020 November, after the lockdown relaxations were in implication. I got this shot. Again, morning around 7 o'clock, we embark by 5:30. We keep roaming around, searching for sighting. If it happens, happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't happen. So it's been, for me personally, there has been like 6 to 7 times continuously going to the forest, coming back without pictures. But still the forest welcomes me, like how Mother Nature takes us in her lap. Sometimes we get to see nice sighting like this. Africa, 2015. So this is the guy you saw. I showed you eye level picture walking across. The same guy, he was inside the bushes. After this he came out and started walking that side, and that picture I shot that time, and this is for the eye contact. That was for the eye level and this was for the eye contact, the same leopard. Conveys So far, whatever I have shown you, eye contact picture, is it really conveying? Is it really connecting? Does it give you a good sense of the animal? Yep. Another one. This is in Ranthambore 2017. After no sighting for 3 hours, we decided to exit the park. That time I see this female, fully grown female, drenching herself, cooling herself in the summer. Then I spent 1.5 hours with her. For the entire 1.5 hours, she looked at me for 1 second. Yes, I do have other pictures. I do have other pictures of the same moment. But this picture is special to me because this picture will speak for me. I don't have to speak. Right? Now, getting the eye contact of two animals, even more tougher. This is again in Africa, 2015. A male and a female inside the bushes. Now the challenge is, even if they look at me, I don't know if the clutters before, the bushes before may hide. So when I got the shot, there was a big wave of the breeze, which actually pushed the grass down. So these two got exposed and I got the shot. Okay, now 3. Okay, cubs. You know how naughty, how fast, how quick they are. I waited all till they got depleted of their energy. And mornings, they are very, very energetic. They won't settle down so quickly. And they are always around the mother. First, they have to get away from the mother. And then they have to play. After they become restless, they will be seated. Then 1 will look, then 2 will look, and then 3. So you need a lot of patience. So what I'm trying to say of all my experience and why I'm shooting such pictures is, I decided what I want. It's not whatever I get, I take and go. I decided that I want 3 eye contact shots. 3 animals with the eye contact at that moment. So if I want that, I trust my intuition, I trust my learning, my understanding of nature and my subject, and I wait. But there is 100% chances of missing it also. Right? Eye level, eye contact with the bird. Indian black robin. Okay? So the bird is actually facing the other side. So I am at the back of the bird. No idea. And you know how quick creatures they are. They won't perch in a place at all. They won't be in a place for long. There was some noise of some squirrel or something. This is in my friend's farm I shot. So because of that noise, it just turned around. So I was ready. Timing the shot, being prepared is very, very important in wildlife photography. But with this picture, we'll go on to discuss about background. How important is choosing a background? So you remember I told you when there was a sentence about the background, choose your background. I said I'll speak about this later. So now we are speaking about that. Imagine this bird without this background. How much of it is impressing? No, not really impressing. So background is very important because it adds beauty to your picture. Right? So mostly you get an out of focus background and it is called you all know it. So what is it called? Yes. So you all know what is depth of field, right? Yes? Yes. So I was prepared knowing you are all Viscom students, so I am not getting into the next level of technical detail. Rather, I am trying to pitch on more about wildlife photography opportunity. Okay, beautiful background, paradise flycatcher. Okay, so you saw the previous bird, the robin, it just turned around. Now this bird opening its mouth, look at the sharpness of the whiskers. Look at the color gradation, right? And the background. How contrasting it is. So now imagine for this brown bird, if I had a brown background, which is very much possible, a dead tree, some dead bushes behind. Would that be impressive or this be impressive? Because the contrast, right? So this is what I meant in the earlier slide when I said choose your background, right? That was the point I wanted you to keep in mind so you can relate to when I'm talking about it here. Home squirrel, right? Look at the reflection, the background, and the water is reflecting some other background. It's not the same background. A simple species. All of us have it at home. But we don't bother to take this as our subject to shoot. So that is where you start your wildlife photography. Good example, a white-throated kingfisher. Look at the background. Because you all know what is depth of field, I am not getting into that detail. Okay. A river tern. Again in the same Ranganathitu, the pelican what you saw with the edge of the wing touching the water, the same safari I got this. So this is a good example for me to explain to you how to choose the background. Okay. So this bird is here and the rock is here like this and the bird is sitting on it. I am sailing from there. Okay. The bird is constantly there. If I shoot from here, it is a different background. If I sail a little further, shoot from here, it is a different background. If I go straight to the direction where it's seeing, the beak is pointing, I get a different background, which would be this rock. Right? So choosing your background. I chose this background because I wanted the contrast. Right? Woodpecker. Look at the background. Can you guess what is the background? It's another tree. Right? So always you don't get a background which is in contrast. This is a very, very, very elusive and a very, very quick bird. Keeps jumping. Does not hang on even for a second. Keeps jumping. So now I don't have a choice of choosing the background. But I put it in depth. I put the background in depth. So now if I had that background also in focus or partially in focus, would this be an appreciable picture? No, it is only a record shot. I also saw a woodpecker. We're going to rule of thirds. You all know what is rule of thirds. You said you know what is rule of thirds. But still we'll just rush through it. Okay, so what is rule of thirds? These are the lines that you see when you see through your viewfinder of the camera. Right? So what does rule of thirds say? Keep the subject or the focus point on your viewfinder on any of these intersections or along the line. Am I right? You all know what it is. So am I right? Okay. So I kept it on the eye because I always say focus on the eye because eye is the most important part of the animal. This one, the same place, Beira, on top of one of the small hills, morning 5:30, so dark. That's the sky behind. Took a silhouette shot, okay? But still, rule of thirds. It's important. Rule of thirds is important, right? So why is rule of thirds important? That's what rule of thirds say. It creates a positive space to narrate a story. So just imagine if I had brought that end here. I want the leopard. The leopard is there. So if I bring that end, that edge of the frame here, will you appreciate the picture? No. That's simply because that's the positive space. That is giving you a lot of anticipation, a lot of untold story about this species. In fact, you can make out it is a leopard. You don't see the colors of it, right? By the shape of it, you know it's a leopard. It can even be a jaguar. Almost same shape, right? But you can imagine whatever story you want because you have such a beautiful space. So where do you leave that? Wherever the animal is facing, wherever the animal chooses to see, that side, you leave a positive space. Same you imagine. I bring that, or I'll keep this leopard there. I'll keep this leopard here. And there's a huge empty space behind the leopard. What kind of thoughts you will get? Only thought that I'm a bad photographer. Right? So, create a positive space before your subject. It is the most natural way of viewing the picture, isn't it? Mostly you wouldn't have seen a picture which is not of this kind, having a positive space on wherever. Not just in wildlife photography, even in an event photography or anything. You leave more space towards where the person who you are picturing is seeing, right? Rule of thirds. Application. Okay, this is a picture of the cheetah which is being seated on a small bund, following rule of thirds. Yes, the subject, the first picture I showed you, I put the rule of thirds and the focus on the eye. Now I cannot put it on the eye because the subject is very far, but still I will apply rule of thirds on this. Now what we've seen was landscape all this while. Now on portraits, does rule of thirds apply? Yes. Yes, the ratio is perfect. A picture like this where you don't have one animal. This I shot in 2015, Africa. I have 3 adults and 3 cubs. Right? Let's apply rule of thirds. Does it apply? No. But is it still a good picture? Yes. So we'll go on to the next question. Is it always on rule of thirds? Let's apply. By the way, there are 2 tigers if you notice. Can you see behind the tree there's one more? This partially rule of third is applied. The face is in the center. The eye is in the center, but partially applied. So what does it mean? It means it is not a hard and fast rule to apply rule of thirds. But if you are breaking a rule, you should know to break it without any damages causing to your image. Right? So needs little expertized touch when you break a rule. Actually it is said rules are to break at your age. But if you want to break it, you should know how to re-alter it. Right? Okay. So now we'll go on to light. As I said, this is the most important. In priority, this comes first because without light, there is no photography. So, how light is important? Beautiful golden light. Very simple subject, a pond heron silhouette. This is like morning 7:30, Rangantittu. Okay. Again, I was sailing. There's a boat behind. Can you see? It has gone out because of the depth. So that's how important light is. So now you have to imagine the same bird, not a silhouette, seen very clearly, but in a normal daylight. Impressive? No. Who said yes? Somebody says yes. I mean, then you are a bird lover. If you are a bird lover. If you are a bird lover, you want to see the bird, you take the bird in light, not like this in silhouette. If you are a photographer wanting to create lovely pictures, use the bird as your subject and create a frame. Okay, so light is a key to any picture. And dawn and dusk are golden hours. That is the morning sunrise time and the sunset time when you get the soft light. Especially when the sun rises, you get a pure soft light because over the night all the dust is settled. And when the sun rises, it gives you a beautiful natural light. This picture was taken at that moment. So dawn and dusk are golden hours, and it is the best time to play with your camera. Play multiple combinations. Keep changing the setting and check what the light is magically doing to different settings that you are trying out. Here's another picture. In fact, this is my very first picture in Africa. For the first time when I went to Africa, this was the very first sighting, and this is the very first picture I took. So, I'm going to show you another picture of the same lion. This is morning 5 o'clock in Africa in the month of December. Sunrise is early there. So, 5 o'clock, you see the rim light? If you want the rim light, you should not be sleeping at the camp. You should be in the wild, because the light is not our possession. Light is just an opportunity. So this is say 5:10 in the morning, 5:15. See in 5 minutes how the light is changed, right? The animal is in the same position, but look at what light is done. So half an hour from this, it's going to be harsh light. I have to underexpose. I have to underexpose in my camera and take a picture. So this is what light can do to your subject. Another one. Same Ranganathitu, and this was in a very bushy, canopied space. There was a small opening for light to come in, and the light was falling on this spot. So I was waiting for some bird to come and give me an opportunity like this, to take the light in the morning. So patience is very important. Understanding of what and all you need to create a picture, and planning for it, anticipating for it, and getting it like this is all wildlife photography is about. Tell me what time I took this picture. 9 o'clock in the morning. 9 o'clock in the morning, completely underexposed. The light is coming, and this crocodile was basking on this rock, completely underexposed. Cut the light, get a shot like as if it was given a, what to say? Yes, a studio light, and look at the mist in the morning. So you have to be on the floor as early as possible. Timing your shot. So this is a greater regret. Flying into perch on this dead tree. So it was about to come and perch on this, you see the center bark, and there is a branch out. That's where it is aiming to perch. Yes, that's what the picture says. Wait. Another flip up. Perching down on the main bark. So timing your shot is important. You see what kind of story this creates, right? You can show the subject in action. Timing your shot. This is another slow shutter. You know what is slow shutter. So timing your shot. It was drizzling. So I know this is going to shiver to take the rain water out of its mane. Wait for it. So I was waiting. He shivered. Right? So you get that shot. Another changeable hawk eagle preying on the jungle myna. This is Kabini, couple of years before. Timing your shot. Deer is generally not a very interesting subject, but when it is milking, how interesting it is. Very rare. A peacock flying across river Kaveri, and the water taking the reflection of the green bushes on the circumference. So look at the contrast of the feather. This one. If you have known what is scent marking, do you know what is scent marking? Every male tiger does this in the forest. Territory. So they mark their territory with their urine, like this. They pee on the trees like this, and the other tiger comes to smell it, and the other tiger takes complete metadata of this tiger. Who is this tiger, whose cub, how old, which is the territory, everything. They keep peeing on the same tree again and again. And they also mark the time. At one point they come together, they fight, one dies, the other acquires that territory. That's how interesting the life of a tiger is. So to be a wildlife photographer, you should also have flair for wildlife than for photography. This is not a good picture. I will not appreciate this picture because see, there are so many clutters and there's one stick that goes disturbing the tiger at the center. This is not a good picture, but I am just showing you this for timing your shot. It may not be a good shot, but this is the behavior of the animal. As a wildlife photographer, you have to capture the behavior. Hanuman langur, milking. We don't bother these langurs. Any monkeys, we don't bother. We go to Tirupati, we go to Ooty, we go to outskirts of Chennai, Sriperumbudur, wherever you go, you kind of see this kind of, you see bonnet macaques, not these, but we don't bother them. But if you sit and watch them, their activities are very, very interesting. Slow shutter. No, the beauty of the fleet. A leopard, after a good meal, coming down only with the skull of a Thompson's gazelle. They shot in Africa, 2019. Timing your shot is so important. It would have not been so interesting if I had shot this when this guy was even eating the meat. But when he's coming down only with the skull, you can narrate superb stories with this. Okay, I have so much to say about this, but paucity of time. Timing the shot. This guy walked like more than half a kilometer inside the park to come and see us. He was so curious. He was with his family, another 2 cubs and the mother. And we were the only jeep. And he's a cub, so for him these safaris and tourist people are not so, he's not so used to it. So looking at us, he walked for half a kilometer, more than half a kilometer. I showed you that picture of the cub which was on top of the building, the same cub. From there he walked so far. I waited for him to come even closer. You know how close he was? I was here, he was there. This distance. So a very unforgettable moment. So if this is timing the shot, I'll show you another one of the same. That. Okay? So he was so curious that he didn't want to leave. He sat. I was keep on focusing on him. I know he is going to try to sniff and explore us. So he opened. Look at the teeth. That's how a cub's teeth would grow. This is Ranganathitu. This is a spoonbill. Timing your shot. No? You saw the same picture before where it was perching next to each other. Yeah? So now you see how I have timed it later. It flew, still flying, and then flew away. A flip, flap, and a flip. Look at the variation in the light. You see from the previous picture what I showed you, you can see the sense of that light at that end. Now see how the light is changed. Focus on the eye. If you focus on the eye, this is the kind of image you can make. This is the same cub. Just now you saw, no? The one next to each other. You just saw, no? The same cub. This guy was in depth. He was below me, like at least 20 feet below me. Why am I showing you this picture? You don't just focus on the eye when it is at eye level or when you get an eye contact shot. Any animal, any time, focus on the eye. This is Ranthambore. Again, focus on the eye. Okay, now almost to the end of it. What matters on a safari? Ethics are important. I'll leave it to you for reading. This is not my picture. I sourced it from the internet just to adhere to the title. We are not in their space. I mean, we are not in our space, rather we are in their space. Don't be very excited, can lead to unethical acts. Don't use flash. Keep a very low voice, don't disturb them. Carry whatever trash you happen to make back to the camp. Obey and trust your naturalist while in the park. Don't distract animals to take pictures, and keep calm and be patient. What matters on safari when you embark? These are the things that you should check. Clean your camera and lens with the prescribed cloth. Check if you have charged your camera battery, if you have enough memory in your memory card. Carry a very compact bag, because when you are in the jeep, another 5 of them will be there with you. You take heavy stuff, then you are going to feel more uncomfortable. Use a bean bag. I've spoken to you about that. Take some trial shots and see if it is working properly. Check your camera settings are altered. Sometimes I go for the evening safari, I leave the settings like that. Next day morning the light is different and my picture becomes more bright. Okay? So with that we come to the end. So it's been a great journey for me through wildlife photography, and of course this 18th Chennai International Film Festival, I feel it is a great opportunity for me to be here, exhibit my pictures, and especially interacting with students was really great. I thank the organizers, Mr. Shanmugam sir, Mr. Prakash sir, everyone who's behind this big event for giving me this opportunity.
And I think you should all keep in touch with this Facebook page. All of you, whatever media you are in, keep in touch with this, because this is very interesting and you have got a fantastic gentleman in front of you. Thank you SK once again for coming.